Hello, how you guys doing? James here. Hope you're doing well and having a good time wherever you're at. I have another social commentary video, and a lot of things that we think that happens in the past, and you've heard stories about American stories about people getting run out of their town, getting run off their properties, and it happens to be a certain demographic, and it's always the same story, and we say that maybe it's just the past. When people used to own property, particularly black people, and that was just of the past. That stuff can't be happening now, right? Like that we come a long way. That's what people say, right? Well, I'm about to show you a couple videos, and you make it determine how far have we come. So I'm gonna show you a couple videos, and come to living next to somebody.
Developing right now in Lake County, Florida Highway Patrol says this video is at the center of their investigation into a deadly crash over the weekend. Troopers claim 4 women were drinking while speeding.
Oh, sorry about that.
3 of them died.
Sorry about that. Wrong story. um, Shout out to his channel.
With the second fire, and this is how
Okay, here it is.
Lifestyles. It has to change. It's not good. It's even to the point to where our children are not safe from the adults around them. Not all children, but too many children are not safe from the adults around them, and they're not safe from their own decisions. So, of course, unity is the key. Unity in building is the key. And that leads us into our second story. Well, we're getting into Tiffany's Farm. So, Tiffany's Farm is a YouTube channel. So, I can't remember how I found the video, but I came across this video that we're going to see. It's from another YouTuber's channel, and I'll put the link in the description. So, apparently there's a young lady and her father, I believe they're in Georgia, I believe, and they'll tell you in the video. And they brought a farm, and basically the white people in that area don't like them there, and the white people are doing any and everything to run them out of the area, including burning, literally burning their farm. So let's get into it.
it's like, I don't care what you have to say. I have evidence. You nasty person.
So, last night he used him. Honestly, nothing better than what.
Just disgusting. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You can call me whatever you want. I know what you are, and everybody in this neighborhood knows what you are.
So this is a video of
That's right. Walk to your own property.
that guy was trying to destroy that.
Trespasser, criminal. Let me tell you, this is.
So starting off, that was the first part of the video, right? So that white guy on the lawnmower was trying to destroy their fence. They have a defined outline property line, and the people in the area, like I say, they want the land, they don't want them there, and they're trying to do everything to destroy everything they have. So even the fences, they're trying to destroy property so they can even take part of their property. And so now, that's how the video opened up, like I said, with that guy trying to destroy that fence. So now they're going to get into the burning of their farm. And remember, before I go further, remember, if you don't like this video, you ain't black, make sure you hit that like button. Let's run these lights up. Let's get it.
Our second fire that we're dealing with. So if you can remember, we had a first fire and they had this whole area right here messed up. Everything was burnt to a crisp, and we actually had to take the time, if you recall some of our other videos, and get U-Haul trucks and cut up all the timber that was burned and decaying on the ground to fix everything back up. And now we're dealing with a second fire, and this is how they left our property again for the second time. And we're going to have to go through the same process. It took us a year to actually straighten it out the first time it happened. Now it's going to take us, I don't know how long, to do it the second time around. But this is what they did. It's a fire that they set the second time. Now we're gonna clean.
So, as you can hear, the young lady's name is Tiffany, and the YouTube channel is Tiffany's Farm. At Tiffany's Farm is the handle. So, like I said, this came to my attention, and I was like, hey, why not use my platform to help them get their message out? Now, I'm scrolling through the YouTube channel now. That's why my head is down a bit. I'm scrolling through the YouTube channel now to see how long ago. And so, the fire video, this video was a month ago, came out on our YouTube channel a month ago. And remember, the YouTube channel is Tiffany's Farm. And so I was like, well, why not help spread some light on what's going on with this young lady? So it's her and her father. And it says, hi community, I'm a farmer, Tiffany. I started as a backyard farmer on less than half an acre, but now I own a mid-sized farm in Middle Georgia. And so they're in Barnesville, Georgia. So basically, the people in Barnesville don't want them there. And arson is happening. And they are, as you heard her say, the second farm, South Georgia. They own the farm. And so we kind of got an idea of what's happening, right? We really have an idea of what's happening going on here. They're trying to run them out. They don't want them there. You're not welcome in our area, right? And so Tiffany and her father's facing a
This is
lot of
America.
issues.
President America.
Exactly.
Well, we got some bad news to tell y'all about the burning in the back. Is terrible. When you get a chance to watch the video, you'll see what we're talking about. My daughter tried to get in contact with the forest people and tell them how bad the situation was, and I had a feeling that they totally ignored her.
So I'm glad he said that, because he reminded me. So they're also dealing with a systematic issue, because they're literally getting no help from the forestry people, police, fire department, like none of the officials, none of the people who's supposed to be regulating this stuff is actually regulating this stuff. They're literally on their own, fighting for their farm, while others are trying to destroy them.
Let me stop right here. I want to say something. So, are black people the bully in this? Did the black people? Because someone might come across this video. Is this is exaggerated? People can be minding their own business, just being the American way of life. And this happened in 2025, but this has happened over decades and decades and centuries. The same thing that's been happening. But we say in America, let's move on. We should be ahead of this stuff. But envies and jealousy is the reason why this happened. Envies and jealousy is the reason why the economy is going the way it is. Envy and jealousy because their towns, small like Bronzeville is predominantly white and have done this stuff in the past, and they have never economically recovered because you have people that do systematic and agree with this kind of system. That's the reason why.
Farm, and it's a systematic issue because the more they report, and that's why they have to make a video, right? Because the more that they report about it, nothing is still happening. Nothing is being done because it's like nobody can figure out who's doing it, right? So you know how that goes. So that's why we're gonna bring light to this.
You know?
Yeah, they pretty much blew me off. They kind of like, when I said it's not just smoke, but it's flames by my fence. The guy that answered the phone, he just brushed it off. I thought that they would at least try to send somebody out here. Even though my land is vacant, there's a lot of families around here.
So I said to him, no, Nigel, not without the free.
Now you see why some black folks say what they say when disasters, even in other areas where there might be a certain percentage of other people, and so when weather disasters happen, it's because of what they've done over the centuries from doing this. This when they lands, and this is when their crops go down, and this is when, and look what's happening now with Trump. What Trump doing to them. They're doing to the farmers, but not just black farmers, but white farmers. Because some of them would do stuff like this. And this is a curse that America would never ever want to address. And it only hurts, it's not hurting, it hurts the market, it hurts the individual who's trying to be productive. But white people don't like to compete when it comes to things. They don't want to compete. They don't want no one around them. And so it's a competition. And this is what this country have always done. And this is the reason why you have a lot of towns in America that still suffers to this day. Like this.
So a lot of people don't like homeowner associations. Most people don't. These people are out here riding around, looking at your yard, seeing if you're cutting it a certain way, see if a certain tree is alive or dead, or etc. So there have been people that have lost their homes due to the homeowner association. Some people get in long court battles with them. A lot of people just don't like them. But the homeowner association wasn't created to make the neighborhood look good. It was created to keep black people out. Let's go really quick.
So increasingly, entire neighborhoods would come together and enter into private contracts saying that they would never ever sell their houses to black people. That way, all the neighbors who signed on to the contract then had the right to sue if any other neighbor turned around and sold their home to a black person. And they would create the contracts to run with the land, as they say in the biz, meaning that it was binding to the property and to subsequent owners of the property, meaning these racially restrictive agreements were then taken on by subsequent buyers of the same property. This is also the reason why homeowners associations were created, to restrict blacks from entire subdivisions. So there's a fun fact to bring up at your racist Great Aunts barbecue next week. And this practice was pervasive in virtually every major city and suburb in the United States for the first half of the 20th century. And these restrictive covenants were upheld again and again by courts across the country as perfectly constitutional because they were private agreements between private parties, not state action against a certain race. And despite the fact that it was acknowledged that government-sanctioned and enforced housing restrictions would be unconstitutional, the government continued to restrict access to housing for black Americans, especially via the FHA. The Federal Housing Administration was created in 1934 in response to the Great Depression to allow the U.S. government to help fund the purchase of housing, thus creating desperately needed construction jobs and helping people who had been flattened by the Depression get back on their feet and purchase property. The way the FHA worked is by using government funds to ensure private bank mortgages that covered 80% of purchase prices and had terms of 20 years. Because the FHA is the one insuring the mortgage on the house, the FHA then insisted on doing its own appraisal of the property to make sure that the loan had a low risk of default. That's what insurers do. They see whether the risk is high or low, and they prefer to insure lower risk things because then they get to keep their money. And what was in the handbooks and manuals for all FHA insurance appraisal agents? A whites-only restriction. Basically, the FHA, as well as other mortgage insurers, had determined that black home buyers were too risky.
So you know now that the homeowner association was created to keep black Americans out. It was a particular contract that they had with each other, basically being on code with each other, like you don't sell your property to no black people. See, this is what I told y'all before. The economic sabotage of the black man and woman of America has been our story. These other groups that just coming across the border or just landing in America, they don't have a documented history of people sabotaging them. Listen, if nobody sabotages you, yeah, in 5 years you can get a nice home, you can get an education, you can get whatever and do very well for yourself. If no one is actively sabotaging you, that's anybody. Black Americans haven't had a time where we're not sabotaged. Sabotage has been the law of the land for the black man and woman of America. And that's why a lot of people don't want to fool the homeowner association on a good day. I know some people that say refuse to move anywhere they got them. They say, oh, no, I'm not moving around them people. I'm not going to deal with them. And you have every right to say that and not go somewhere where there's a homeowner association. But this is the history that a lot of them don't like told. They don't like history being told to say, wait a minute, that HOA was meant to harm black people, just like the police force.
When we started using ShareFile, we discovered lots
was meant to harm black people, just like the police force. It was meant to control black people. It wasn't meant to be doing what they're doing today, but some of the same function, right? Slave patrol morphed into the police. So every institution they create, a lot of it, I would say the majority of them, is meant to harm black people.
So increasingly, entire neighborhoods would come together and enter into private contracts saying that they would never ever sell their houses to black people. That way, all the neighbors who signed on to the contract then had the right to sue if any other neighbor turned around and sold their home to a black person. And they would create the contracts to run with the land, as they say in the biz, meaning that it was binding to the property and to subsequent owners of the property, meaning these racially restrictive agreements were then taken on by subsequent buyers of the same property.
But that's why, for me, like I say, I like the African continent because you don't have to deal with those issues and problems. And let me say something about that, since I mentioned that. I'm going to tell you from now on, going forward, if you come to the comment section, at least if I see it, and you go on this, I don't care about no Africa, I ain't going over there, if you're anti-Africa on a channel that says African Diaspora News Channel, biggest day, I'm gonna block you. I'm letting you know. I don't like your negativity that you have. To me, your attitude is anti-black, just like these white supremacists that created the HOA to keep us out. You just as anti-black too, as they are. Like I said on one podcast before, is that the white supremacists is your bastardized mama and daddy. That's why you act the way they act. You just as anti-black as they are. You rather wrap yourself and fight dealing with a white supremacist all day, but it's a problem if someone talks about the African continent, really, where the world comes from, where definitely I come from, you come from, we all come from that, period. But so if you're anti-Africa here, and you come in, I don't care about no Africa, I don't care about this, keep it to yourself. If you feel that way, keep it to yourself. But if you put it in my comment section from now on, you're blocked. I'm not going to argue with you because I don't like your negativity. Because maybe somebody else is interested. Maybe somebody else would like to go see it for themselves. Maybe somebody else would like to say, I like to go and even open up a shop, do some business with the brothers and sisters overseas. You know what I'm saying? I want that kind of connection because I have that kind of connection in the African continent. I have people I work with daily over there. And I just don't like the anti-African sentiment in my comment section. Just even the mere mention of it. You want to deal with the white supremacists to the day you die, Go ahead, have at it. I hope it works out well for you. But other people, sometimes they don't want to deal with these white supremacists. When I went to that, and I showed y'all this on this channel, when I went to that, Blue Valley subdivision out there in Midland, out there in Johannesburg, you don't have those issues and problems. You got the money, you can go do what you want to do. Get your place to stay. People look like you around there. So that's what I'm on. I'm a solution-based person. I'm not going to be crying all day long. So, that's what I need to do? Okay, I'm going to go do that. But these HOAs and those anti-black, reasons why it was created, and look at it today. There's been many stories of black people, even today, talking about the HOA and how they treated them because they didn't want them in the neighborhood. These institutions that start off as anti-black racists, they need to be called out, for one, and black people need to be on their behind about it. So yes, homeowner associations were created to keep black people out, not to make sure the neighborhood stays good. No, it was meant to keep black people out. It's a racist institution, just like the police is. But let me know what y'all think about, this.
Thank you, Phil, for pointing that out. Because America hasn't changed. See how racism transformed in today's world? I'm going to show you a video that from the past and how they did a similar thing in the past. And the reason why black people and people with truth speak of this is because we're trying to show you these videos. We're trying to tell you that nothing hasn't changed. It's a spirit in some people from generation after generation of jealousy and envy against black Americans to come against them when it comes to moving and achieving the American dream. That's what it comes down to. People that never did anything, that want to live in harmony. And you will know what's in the past. If you ever look at most black people want to be at peace, even when they live in separate neighborhoods. But it was always the antagonizer on the white side that would try to drum up something or get liberated to come start some stuff, or they have to come down the ladder with something, some accusation that a black man put his hands on a white woman, and so now that's going to invoke the Klan. This is the bully tactic we have from the centuries, and this is the reason why we are divided in ways as of today. And so this is the reason why, and some things don't go away, because I'm pretty sure with all reason and rational of all races of life, there's a segment of people that would cover up, just like he mentioned in that video, of the racism. And these towns are going to suffer economically. And people like Trump in office is going to make them white neighborhoods suffer. And they don't even see the outcome by doing little stuff like this. And we're not saying that every white person down there is standing in agreement. Well, I'm not saying that. But it's the reason why when you go into these little towns like this, when there's no industry, there's no tax base, it's because of envy and jealousy and spiritual history behind these little incidents like this. You can't treat the people just because of pigment and the complexion in the person's skin. What makes you think that another person that can provide you and your community and maybe keep generations of your children from leaving the doggone town and leaving the doggone state, because you got some people that want to stay right in the doggone past. This is the reason why. No, and then there's a segment of people that don't want to move on to the past, don't want to move on with the present. And this is the reason why black people talk about the past, because the past is always reflecting in it. Then it's almost like I always use the terms, if Simon says, if it's Simon says, if it don't look like us, then it must not be happening. That's how some people who are white have that mindset. It must not be happening. It must be in your delusion. You must be making things up out of it. And then when you show proof, there'll be someone that throws excuse with that. That's what make black people and us separate, and make us angry. Like, come on, you see what it is, but this goes back to this video.
We're making Play the best place to grow PC games. Google Play Games on PC is moving into general
This is why we have a
availability.
place like Lake Lanier. And they don't want to talk about it. But there are people that still dying in this lake.
Lake Lanier has a dark history, but even today, it remains one of the deadliest lakes in the United States. Some say it's haunted, and there have been many reports of the Lady of the Lake dragging people into the water. Why have hundreds of people met their end at Lake Lanier? And why is this happening today? Let's take a deep dive into the lake and see what lies underneath the surface.
Sometimes, though, the lake pulls you in and doesn't let you go.
When we're talking about Black history, we usually go back to at least a couple of decades. This time, though, we're touching on a topic still haunting the world today, Lake Lanier. On the 2nd of September, 2023, Kavir Alexander Whitlock, at the age of 23, died in the lake. According to official sources, Whitlock ran down some rocks and he slipped. This happened at around 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday. While it's not unheard of that people drown in the lakes, here's where things start to get interesting. Whitlock is the 8th person to die in Lake Lanier in 2023. From 1994 up to 2022, over 200 deaths have been recorded at Lake Lanier. When we rewind back to when the lake was initially created, this number increases to more than 500. Even though many have died there, Lake Lanier remains a popular location, attracting as many as 11 million people annually. Many people believe it's a haunted location, and that's due to the dark history that lies behind the lake. What was once a thriving small black town became a river after the local citizens were forced out. Our story doesn't start with the drownings, but before this area became a lake, there was a town. Let's go back to the 1800s, to this black town called Oscarville. It was estimated that Oscarville was home to over 1,000 black people in the 1800s. The town was also a thriving community with blacksmiths, carpenters, and even farmers. The black people who inhabited the area were also considered successful.
If you haven't heard of it, it's probably because it no longer exists. It's buried under Lake Lanier.
While Oscarville was only flooded in the 1950s, the brutality that white mobs placed on the black people who lived here started much earlier. This brings us to the story of Rob Edwards. He was a black man who was part of the community in Oscarville. In September 1912, things turned into a nightmare for Edwards. May Crow, a white female, 18 at the time, was assaulted in a forest that was relatively close to her home. When she was found, she had severe injuries, and Crow later died of the wounds she had sustained. Officials then arrested Edward, charging him with the assault on Crow. The strange thing, there was no witnesses who saw what happened, and the officials had absolutely no evidence to go on when they decided to charge Edwards and arrest him. Edwards was 24 when he got arrested, and he was sent to the local county jail. Falsely accusing Edwards and throwing him in jail was not enough for the people, though. Shortly after this happened, a white mob actually removed him from jail and assaulted Edwards. They used crowbars to beat him up and then shot him multiple times. Edward didn't make it. To further add insult to injury, this white mob dragged his body into the local town square. It didn't stop there. Edwards was the first victim of this white mob. He had a family whom officials then targeted. This led to the arrest of Edwards' wife, who was known as Jane Daniel. Other people were arrested too, including the cousin of Daniel and his cousin. They even decided to arrest Ed Collins, who was the neighbor of the Edward family. Two of the individuals who they arrested were still teenagers at the time. Of course, there was a jury made up of only white people who convicted this group of people. And it all happened because the police decided that Rob Edwards was responsible for the death of a white girl. After being convicted, this group of black people that they arrested spent some time in jail, but they were all later hung. During this event, when white people hung up these innocent black individuals, there were an estimated 5,000 people who came to watch it. Multiple people lost their lives over something that they had no involvement in at the time, and we can agree that the reason for this was their skin color. Had Rob Edwards been a white person, would they have falsely accused him? And would things have worked out the same? Probably not. There was an aftermath that targeted the entire Oscarville. These killings of Edwards, his wife, and several other black people happened between September and October 1912. After that, the white mobs decided to turn to Oscarville. They they started to put buildings on fire throughout Oscarville, even targeting the black churches that were part of this thriving town. As a result, it was not only the churches that were burned to the ground, but also many businesses that were owned by black people. During this brutal movement by these white mobs, they also forced the black people who lived in Oscarville to flee. Their goal was to rid the entire county of these people. By 1950, the United States government decided to put an end to the town that was called Oscarville. Even though the black people who were residents were forced to leave, their legacy still remained alongside unmarked graves. Oscarville was flooded, and the local authorities decided to build a man-made lake. They left a lot of structures in place, and just decided to flood the environment. Fast forward to today, and we have urban legends that developed over the years. We don't have a clear view of what lies at the bottom of Lake Lanier. According to one diver, things might be terrifying down there. Buck Buchanan, a well-known diver in the United States, actually went to the depths of Lake Lanier. In 2017, he talked to local media outlets and mentioned feeling body parts in the water. Of course, at the depth divers tend to go, it's often difficult to see clearly. He did mention that it felt like body parts, and if you touched them again, they didn't move. While it has become a popular leisure site for millions of people, there have been a concerning number of deaths recorded at Lake Lanier. Explanations from officials remain similar, pointing towards drownings and boat accidents. Before we take a closer look at all of this, we should first consider some of these deaths, how they happened, and what officials, such as the Army Corps of Engineering, say about them. One of the most recent deaths happened on Saturday, the 2nd of September 2023. After slipping on a rock and falling into a river, it was announced that Gavir Alexander Whitlock died at 23. However, just a short period before this happened, a previous death was also reported at Lake Lanier. On the 26th of August, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office had a call regarding a drowning happening at Lake Lanier. This crew was dispatched to investigate. The call came in during the afternoon. Unfortunately, the crew wasn't in time, as the victim had already drowned upon their arrival. Since the victim didn't resurface, the crew went onto the body of water in a boat. By using sonar technology on the boat, they were able to identify the position of the victim's body, which was 10 feet under the surface of the water. It was later announced that the victim had indeed died. The victim was Edgar Stephen Cruz Martinez, age 23, and was reported to have gone for a swim in Lake Lanier.
Lake Lanier is a popular destination on these hot summer days, but it can also be dangerous. A 23-year-old man drowned while swimming in the lake this weekend. It's the third drowning there since July.
5 days before Martinez drowned, the death of Brian Terrasone was reported on the 21st of August. At 6:40 p.m., a call was made to the Hall County Fire Rescue Department regarding a potential drowning happening at Lake Lanier. The call had a response team go out to Van Q Park. Terrasone was swimming with 2 friends at the park, but drowned as he made his way up to the shore. Using sonar technology, responders were able to identify the location of Terrasone's body in Lake Lanier, and his death was officially confirmed at 8:30 p.m. the same evening. On the 29th of July, Leonardo Martinez went missing while swimming in Lake Lanier. He entered the lake from Van Q Park. Game wardens were tasked with a search for his body, which took a couple of days. His body was found on the 3rd of August in the morning. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources reported that Martinez's body was discovered floating in the lake surface. His body was about 30 yards away from the shoreline. On the same day, another report of a missing person was noted. This was Tracy Stewart, a 61-year-old from Stone Mountain. It was close to East Bank Park when he went missing. When Stewart swam in this area, he reportedly went underwater and didn't resurface. It took a few hours to search for Stewart's body, but the game wardens at Lake Lanier were able to find his body, which was roughly 4 to 6 feet from the surface. The previous event is reported on May 22nd when a 57-year-old man went missing at Lake Lanier.
Let me stop right here. So, you know how they're trying to get rid of African American books and things like that. They trying to erase Black Americans' achievements in the military. They have tried to do everything to erase Black achievement, Black towns and everything, and the historical. But they want to tell the Simon Says history or what they want, but they don't want to tell you the whole history. And they think by if we scrape it and we scratch it out, that our children's children, they won't have to bear the white guilt of this. But you see, But even though you can hide the past, but you see how things come up in the present. Do you see people losing their, and that's just by, it's nothing fun or nothing funny about someone losing their life. But you see them just to the white people have done this in the past, and generations later they do the same thing because they're jealous. They don't want to see black people survive. This is why black people want to move on with the present. But you see how something from the past comes to the present? That was over with 200 or 300 years, well, 300 or 400 years ago. 200 or 300 years ago. And you have the same spirit. That's why I put it in the lake in there. Spirit. That they've done this. And they think that they can just cover it up. Just like that they can cover up things before. But as they said, the ancestors of the indigenous slaves have never forgotten. And when you look at the different parts of what happened in the last couple of years with the hurricane in some areas, and people didn't want to tell this part, that they were sundown towns. And a lot of those towns were probably some black towns, integrated towns, that a white mob went through there. And this would do something like this. And now that these areas are probably going through the flooding, is that chance a coincidence? Here we are all the way in 2025, and you seeing this same thing they did in 1835. But they thought they was gonna cover this up. And it's like we want to come up with the past, but they still, out of envious, jealousy, and hatred for the black man and black family, they will constantly come at it. This is why I say this is ancestral. This is like a bloodline thing. This is like there are some people still in their bloodline hate black people. They would go to like with that one young lady and her father. This is the same spirit that they've done, but yet you're supposed to look past that. The same spirit. It's the same spirit that someone who was black encountered this in 1835, but this was based on a false allegation that was a lie that caused many people life. And here's the thing about it is, ladies and gentlemen, no one in this country will never repent of it. They won't repent. They won't say that they're sorry or nothing. They will harden up their heart like the pharaohs and maybe cover it and sweep it under the rug. And knowing that maybe, and don't even care that it may be a generation or two down the line that their children going to have to feel the reap of it. Or go out into some place like Lake Lanier or other places and have mysterious things happen to them. We told you that. We tell that that's why black people are spiritual people, but they still don't get it. They don't get it. You know, they just they don't get it. You know, and we want to cover it up. We want to scrape it away, and they think that's what it is. And guess what they say next?
I've been stuck in survival mode, and so
I'm
when
gonna
I sat
show
down
you
and
video
really
this.
kind of thought about Triple 10 with
The scars of slavery run deep, etched not just on the backs of individuals, but on the very fabric of society. For centuries, millions were subjected to the barbarity of chattel slavery, their lives, families, and humanity stolen. Can the wounds inflicted be healed? Can the scales of justice be balanced after generations of suffering? The answer, complex and multifaceted, lies in the pursuit of reparations. You are welcome to quite a serious one today. A deeply troubling reality. one which we must wholeheartedly visit if we must heal wounds and erase scars, if we must bury the old and erect anew reparations for the old undying ravages caused by slavery.
The recommendations for reparations must include compensation, restitution, which accounts for stolen land or stolen wealth, stolen opportunities, rehabilitation, free education, free health care. These examples. I'm not saying those are going to be the final recommendations.
The notion of reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, that system of human exploitation that stained humanity's past, is a hotbed of debate. Critics scoff at the possibility, dismissing it as impractical, divisive, and even unfair. Supporters, however, argue with unyielding passion that the wounds inflicted are far from healed, and that true justice demands acknowledgement through concrete action. To simply say reparations are way overdue is simplistic, yet undeniably true. But navigating this issue demands delving into the tangled mess of history, understanding the multifaceted ramifications of slavery, and acknowledging the challenges and possibilities discussions on this affair presents. Imagine a cosmic debt, an unfathomable ledger filled with unpayable entries, centuries of stolen lives, severed families, stolen labor, and shattered identities. Even uttering the word reparations feels inadequate in the face of such profound harm. Generations have borne the weight of this legacy, woven into the very fabric of society through entrenched inequalities in wealth, education, healthcare, and access to opportunity. It's not merely a matter of individual suffering, it's a systemic distortion, a collective scar that refuses to fade. The wounds of slavery, though centuries old, still bleed in the fabric of our society. The scars of forced labor, stolen families, and broken spirits echo in the disparities that plague black communities even today. While monuments to abolition stand tall, the true bill for the sins of the past remains unpaid, a moral debt that festers with each passing generation. To deny reparations for these damages is not merely an oversight, it is a deliberate act of perpetuating the legacy of injustice. Imagine a merchant who, after years of exploiting a supplier, declares them free but refuses to settle the outstanding accounts. The supplier, despite their newfound freedom, remains crippled by the unpaid debts and the legacy of exploitation. This, in essence, is the predicament of black Americans or blacks in every country slavery ever took place. Emancipation granted liberty, but it did not erase the economic plunder, the psychological trauma, and the systematic disenfranchisement that were the hallmarks of slavery. To argue against reparations based on practicality is to ignore this enduring reality. Can money truly erase the ghosts of the auction block, the sting of Jim Crow laws, the echo of police brutality? No, it cannot. But it can acknowledge the debt, offer tangible steps towards healing, and dismantle the structures that perpetuate the legacy of slavery. Investing in communities ravaged by systemic disadvantage, funding educational initiatives, establishing healthcare programs rooted in racial equity. These are not handouts, but overdue investments in rectifying a historical injustice. The wealth generated on the backs of enslaved people fueled the rise of nations. Yet black communities were denied access to this very wealth through discriminatory policies like Jim Crow laws and redlining. This economic disenfranchisement continues to reverberate today, manifesting in the wealth gap, limited access to quality education and healthcare, and the higher rates of poverty that plague black communities. Opponents of reparations often cite the impracticality of quantifying and addressing the immeasurable harms of the past. They argue that such efforts would be divisive, fueling resentment and fostering a culture of victimhood. However, this argument ignores the reality that a nation built on the foundation of injustice cannot achieve true equality without acknowledging and addressing its past. Reparations, then, are not about mere monetary compensation, though that may be a part of the solution. They are about acknowledging the collective responsibility for past wrongs, about investing in the future of communities that have been historically marginalized and denied opportunities. Reparations are measures that seek to rectify a heinous injustice with an acknowledgement and an apology. In this context, they refer to an attempt to remedy the unpaid labor of millions of Africans who arrived in the English North American colonies as human chattel. Their work was vital to the accumulation of American capital, but neither they nor their descendants shared in the benefits. The goal of any reparations plan today would be to compensate the 40 million descendants of the enslaved people, and, in theory, to narrow the disparities caused by slavery. The forms that reparations can take are varied and open to discussion. Educational initiatives aimed at closing the achievement gap, healthcare programs addressing generations of health disparities, and investments in black businesses and communities are just a few examples. The goal is not to create a zero-sum game, but to build a more just and equitable society for all. On a memorable Friday, July the 17th, the rapper and activist shared a 2-page open letter to the UK insurance giant, demanding that the firm pay reparations to the descendants of African slaves for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. Our people have been financially impaired and economically disabled due to the systemic oppression and institutional racism it leaves behind. T.I. captioned an Instagram post featuring the letter, "Time to take what we know our ancestors deserved and died for." This was the result of Lloyd's acknowledgement on the month of June of its ties to the slave trade and the pledge to make amends, which included recruiting more black employees and providing financial support to charities that promote diversity and inclusion. But T.I. says that just isn't enough. Your commitment to reparations is an honourable one, but commitment without tangible actions is merely lip service, he wrote in the letter. We demand a specific call to action that includes, but is not limited to, direct reparations being made to the families who were ripped from their native lands and sold as property, while your company profited from the whole shameful endeavour. Interestingly, T.I. goes on to suggest 4 effective avenues for reparations. 10% ownership of Lloyd's be given to the descendants of African slaves, accurate annual tracking of those reparations, a $1 million cash loan with 1% interest to every African American adult once in their lifetime for the next 200 years, and at least one African American member on its board. The rapper closed his letter by urging Lloyd's to have a comprehensive reparation plan in place by fall of 2020. We have waited long enough, and our community deserves real action and much more than empty apologies or platitudes, he writes. It's only getting interesting and somewhat hopeful, seeing the fever of conscience on the rise these recent times.
I'm going to go ahead and cut this video, and I'm going to share my thoughts on it. You know, they have tried to do this in Oklahoma. They shut it down. They tried to make a reparation bill, and it was some senator, I don't know, out of Texas somewhere, he shut it down. And these people that's going to shut it down don't understand the Bible. They don't understand that even though that the Pharaoh, like the days of the Pharaoh, hardened up their heart, but do you see that, you know, God tried to warn the Egyptians at the time to let his people go. And the Pharaoh said, no, we're not, you know, there's going to be some complications, there's going to be some stipulations. And, you know, and the middleman Moses, because it's coming up on the time of Passover, that time. And the Pharaohs kind of hardened up their heart. They kept hardening up their heart. But you see, in the end, what's one of the things that happened? You guys, you could be a beginner that reading this out of the Bible. He hit the agriculture. He hit them with famine. And when the firstborn start leaving, a lot of the firstborn start leaving the earth. And even after all, it took something to break the pharaohs of Egypt, like in other places where they had the people in bondage, that they didn't do right. And then finally, when Pharaoh see that his kingdom was collapsed, you know, that he was scared. That what the God that the Hebrews did, he then what did he do? He gave their gold, their 450-year reparation. And what did he try to do next? He tried to come at them because we want to put them back in bondage. I'm warning America, if God ever do you like he did to Pharaoh, and you come at us, you might end up like with the Pharaoh's army, and you put your military and other things at it. You see what happened to Egypt. Egypt was no more because of slavery, and because they was put them in the Egyptians had them in spiritual bondage, physical bondage, and didn't at the time, because before they didn't start out like that, but it was one Pharaoh that hardened up his heart, and you know the story how they put them in bondage. But in the end, when they went, you know the story. It's the story that every time about the 10 Commandments and how the way God wait till His people get over that between out of that wall, and why they was a couple days, hours back, and they try to go after them in the wall collapsing. The wall of America is going to collapse, and these politicians that keep playing these games with the descendants of the Africans are going to see more things like you see in the Carolinas and Florida, and these floods are coming, and the tornadoes are coming. There's retribution and you need to do. It's repentance you need to do, true repentance. And you can't run and hide and deny and think that some other foreign God's going to save you. The God of white nationalism, the God of white supremacy is not going to save you. It didn't save them. The supremacy of Egypt, it didn't save them. It won't save white nationalism. It won't save white supremacy, because though that we may not come as weapons, is because it's got to be retribution, a spiritual retribution. Do you understand, people? Everything is in Lake Lanier is a prime example. Over a few hundred people passed away, and there were some few people of other nationalities that died. But overall, it was majority of that were white. Out of mistake, and one guy survived that. All because they didn't do right. And just like Donald Trump and these other people doing it, trying and letting white nationalists and white supremacy, they bringing a curse upon them, and they don't even know it. They think they're gonna break it like what perceive it, just like other civilizations, that we'll be on top and we have everybody else, and so we can maintain white power, white nationalism. You don't understand. You don't understand. It's over. It's over. And the God of the Most High, through some Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus. Remember, we told you 2019, and now you've seen what's 2019. Even though we in the midst of it, is people, the descendants of Africans and other people, oppressed people. We try to tell you. We keep. That's why you don't want to hear, and some of you don't want to hear and acknowledge it. You got some of us that don't want to believe it. Now you understand. Do you see the message clear? It's not the going way you think it's going to go. It's not going to be, like warfare with weapons. It may not be like that, but someone's going to have to pay the retribution. And it don't matter how many laws or how many cover up, because if Egypt had to do what they probably would have did, like they would want to cover what they did to the Hebrews, but God didn't allow it. He didn't allow it to happen. And just in case someone say that, well, there was ever Egypt, that's why He let some of the remainers of the monument over to Egypt to this day, and they still try to interpret what was the Egyptians talk about to this day. Because we know that those people over there ain't the real Egyptians, because they can't read the writing, the graphic of what they're writing. Do you understand? And just like every other, like a Babylon, like Rome, like Greece, it fell because they was in sin. And part of some of the sins was they had people doing the bondage and slavery and doing unjust. And in America, it's not going to be no obsession until she do right with the descendants of what you brought over. You done right for other people, but you will not do right with the descendants that made the human race. You didn't put it in your laws that they were 3/5 of a human, but to the mighty God, they're not 3/5 of a human. You evolve around us. We evolve around you. You're going to pay. You're going to wish you were paid. It's like the pharaohs in that day. And I'm sorry some people is going to offend some people. Because look at what we are at right now. This could be one of the causes because of it. Jealousy and envy is going to destroy in ghost town many places in America. White nationalism is going to be your downfall. Keep it up in the government. Keep it wherever you go. Keep it in the law, whatever. But it will be destroyed one day. If you don't, you will suffer the consequences like other places in the world. Look at now. Look at centuries of it. Go back in your centuries and see. And it wasn't because of that, but it could be because of other things too. But it allowed the many things that downfall. Only make these videos, not to just be. It's like a warning. Do right. I don't like to see. I don't see joy in people suffer and have to suffer and watch other people suffer. But why should the generations you have to suffer? Because you harden up your heart. You will not tell the people the truth, and they try to lock it from generations. You can't lock it away. You can't hide it. It will never be hidden, because the spirit of truth of the Most High God will let it be revealed to generations to come. Somebody gonna remember and share this video. It's not about division. It's about doing what's right. And if they don't do what's right, you're gonna pay the price. Just look at our weather patterns. Look what's happening. The plagues, the famine. It's hitting all of us. Hitting the whole nation. You have greedy men. They think they're gonna get away with it. They're not getting away with it, because even they're gonna feel it. Just a guy. I'm just a small YouTuber, just trying to warn you. Do right by us, and maybe and pray. Because if you don't do right, because we're in the midst of judgment as we speak. This could be one of the things because of judgment. Think about it. Take care. Be blessed.